Hello, everyone. This is Chilian from Inspiral Ballet, the multidimensional platform here to enhance dancers' career. And basically, we're trying to educate as much as we can the young generations of dancers. So today we have a special guest, it's Matz, which is an amazing dancer. He danced for over 25 years in Sweden. He's got Russian training as well. Funnily enough, it's kind of like he was the director of the English National Ballet. He lived in England for so many years and he had plenty of experience with dancers. He knows everything about the people, the career, what it takes. We wanted to pick his brain a little bit and see what he said. So, hello, Max, how are you?
Hello, G. I'm very well, thank you. And thank you for having me on here today.
No, it's a privilege. It's an honor to have you today. So we wanted to talk about ballet, obviously, your previous career. So can you please tell us about your life as a dancer, how you start, what was it? So all your information about yourself.
Okay, well, I'll give you a quick summary of my dancing career, which started in 1965 when I was 8 years old. I started in the Royal Swedish Ballet School, and it has gone on ever since then, really. And briefly, I trained at the Royal Swedish Ballet School and was a member of the company in my early days. But then as a young man, I moved on to the UK to seek adventure, fame, and fortune, and where I found lots of adventure, some fame, not much fortune. But in any case, I danced for many years with English National Ballet, and which was then Festival Ballet when I joined the company. I've also danced with Netherlands Dance Theatre and the Rambert Dance Company in the UK, and London City Ballet when that was still in existence. So, and then some guest appearances here and there over the years. So that took me, my dancing career spanned somewhere between 25 and 30 years, I suppose, until I felt it was time to move on, as you do eventually when you get into your sort of mid-30s, and it's becoming quite hard to keep going. Well, it did for me anyway. And that's when I was seeking new opportunities, and I started teaching, and I became a ballet master and so on. And that led to appointments as artistic director. So I was artistic director of two national dance companies, first the Royal New Zealand Ballet, and then later English National Ballet. So that spanned, I suppose, at least 30 or 40 years of my life. But I was the artistic director for 10 years, and leaving those positions, I then got interested in leadership development and how to support another generation of artists to emerge out of the ranks, to become good leaders. And that's when I got into coaching. But anyway, over to you. Ask your questions now.
So yes, I wanted to pick your brain about dancers. You've been directing two different companies, two different cities in the world with different bodies, different way of moving, different cultures. So can you please tell us, especially for the young generation, what were you looking for at the time when you were seeking dancers for those companies?
Well, as I said, it was two different companies, first at the Royal New Zealand Ballet. And of course, being located in New Zealand, there was particular conditions and situations which I had to adapt myself to. And you had to work with local talent and what was available here. And the challenges of getting talented dancers from abroad into New Zealand. So that was one approach. I always looked for individuality, personality. Obviously, you're looking for dancers that can dance. That's a prerequisite, that you want dancers that know the stuff and can have good techniques and the right physical facilities for the job. But personally, I've always looked for personality and individuality. Of course, then when I moved on to England for the English National Ballet, there was a much broader and much greater choice of people to to employ, I suppose, being located in Europe, in the UK, and it was an international reputable company. So a lot of people would apply to join. I mean, when I was director, I think I would receive at least 1 or 2, sometimes 3 applications every day of the week. I have a letter on my desk waiting, someone wanting to join the company, audition for the company. So there was a much greater choice there, of course. And as always, you look for dancers that look the role, that look the real thing, and can do the stuff and have a decent technique. But again, personally, I always look for individuality and personality. But the other thing that I think is important as a director to look for, and when you're watching a dancer in audition, you want to feel that this is someone I can trust, someone who is going to be self-managing, someone who is not going to be precious, someone who's going to be quite robust and cope with the pressures of the profession. And I think that is a really, really important quality to have.
So Inspiral Ballet is kind of like trying to build a new generations of dancers that to be provided to the directors of the future companies, as well, with dancers that are intelligent, but the inner intelligence. So the dancers that know their body so much that they can perform anything from a classical to a contemporary and everything else in between, because the world is getting so wide at the moment, and all dancers having to perform too many different roles in too many different choreographies, and we're getting a spectrum is so big at the moment. So in terms of technical abilities, would you look for a dancer that have a strong foundation? How do you describe a dancer for you that is technically able to do anything, and you will feel comfortable to work with, and you will trust that dancer that they have the sufficient tools, physical, mental, and emotionally, in order to comply to the requirement of a choreographer, a director, a ballet choreography, anything that is being exposed to?
Well, what you need is, as you kind of described the person already in your question, someone who can comply and to actually fill all of these functions. So what you need today is dancers that are broadly trained across the dance forms. Because just to go back a little bit in time, when I was a young man, it was enough to be a fella. It was enough to be a male in order to guarantee a dancing career. Well, that's not quite the same anymore. I mean, I was classically trained and also trained in other dance styles, because I was in a very progressive school in that respect. The Royal Swedish Ballet School, we trained anything from contemporary, grand technique, jazz dance, character dance, tap dancing, ballroom dancing, flamenco. We did everything. So I had a very broad training. So I was very fortunate like that. But fundamentally, I was classically ballet trained. Today, for a dancer to be successful in a career, I think you need a strong classical ballet foundation. I would call it, you don't even need to call it classical ballet, I would call it traditional training foundation, together with a contemporary dance technique, because you can expect if you're working in one of the reputable companies, one of the major companies in the world, or even one of the sort of medium companies in the world, you can expect to do a very broad repertoire that goes everywhere from the traditional classical repertoire to some very contemporary work. So you need to be able to work across those styles. But also, I find, for instance, as a difference today, choreographers might use voice on stage in dance. They might use anything from speech to singing. So even having the ability to verbalize is important, because dancers have traditionally always been silent people. you know, you were trained to work silently and quietly, but that's not necessarily the case anymore. So you need to even have that ability to speak up technically.
So that's brought back the fact that you were asking for personality. So basically, they have to be a personality that it can change, and it can be open enough to be able to verbalize and express beyond the physical movement.
Yes, right. And you need dancers of intelligence. I've very rarely seen a successful dancer who is not also intelligent. And I find that is an important point to make, that if you go into the profession just with the idea, well, I just want to dance, I don't want to think about anything else, I think you're making a mistake. I think if you go into the profession with the intention of exploring it and being prepared to change and being courageous and ready to do different things, then you have a chance to be successful. And the other point I would like to make, over my years as artistic director, I always had conversations with my dancers, and I found that those dancers that had a vision of what they wanted to do beyond their dancing career also work better in the present time than those dancers that didn't have a vision of the future. So I would say the other thing that you need today is to have a vision of what you want to do after your dancing career. They can still be related to your profession, to the dance profession, but it might also be something entirely different. But that vision of the future means that you can work much more securely in the present time.
That's a very interesting point. And that will take us to what you're doing right now. You're working with dancers and you're helping them to get that vision. You're helping them to have a clear pathway in their head and in their actions as well, how to develop themselves during the career and preparing for after the dance career as well. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing work that you're doing. So you constantly give away more and more information and expanding and allow those people to learn from your experiences, which is amazing. So can you please talk about your coaching career at the moment? How you approach your coaching to dancers? What do you give to them? So give us all the information you can, please.
Well, just to repeat why I got into coaching in the first place is when I left my position as artistic director of English National Ballet. And as I said, I wanted to get into leadership development in order to enable another generation of leaders to emerge out of the ranks of the dance companies, perhaps the new generation being better prepared than I was, because I wasn't prepared for the role of manager, director, and leader. It was something that I had to learn on the jobs, as it were. And I had some success and also made mistakes and had some failure along that way. So that's why I got into coaching in the first place. And now, of course, I work with all sorts of professionals, by the way, not only dance people, arts people, but I also work with other business professionals. But inevitably, coming from a dance background, a lot of my clients are dance people, dance professionals. And I work with some very young ones and some mature people and some people at the very end of their careers. So I worked across a range of people, dance people with different challenges. Some, as I say, developing in early career, some developing going into change. And having been through a range of, first of all, having filled a range of functions in the dance world, as I have done, everything from being on stage to being a manager, to being a consultant, to being a coach, and all of those things, leader, I can relate to most challenges that most dancers go through. So I think I have acquired quite a lot of wisdom along the way. Which I think is perhaps more important than knowledge. I prefer wisdom. I think carries a greater weight than knowledge, although I have knowledge as well. So I do help people with professional development or professional transition, because the dance profession, which is by its very nature a very self-centered existence, if you're lucky enough to have a solid career with a good company, it's a very self-centered existence. I don't mean that in a derogative sense, but by the nature of being profession, you're focused on yourself and what is necessary for you in order to maintain yourself. So sometimes you might come out at the end of those 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it might be, you might be dancing, not that well prepared for life beyond. And I think we often talk about how being a dancer prepares you for other things in life, how you're disciplined, you know how to work hard and all of that sort of thing, which is all true. However, a lot of that high performance that you experience as a dancer is because of the environment you're in. It creates an environment of high performance is created around you. And when you take a dancer out of that environment, they don't have that infrastructure around them necessarily. And that can be quite a tough transition to make. And then when you then have to yourself have to create that high performance environment without the people around you, without the infrastructure, without the peer pressure.
It's a little bit like taking Fausto out of the laboratory, isn't it?
Well, yes.
It's taking Fausto away from the laboratory and exposing it to the real life. But as you say, it takes a lot of wisdom to kind of like do this transition as well, and to embrace a different form of life, which not many people are prepared. Wisdom is experience, and you are the person to be talked to in this case, because you have experience, wisdom, the understanding, because I believe some of those people who come to you, they will feel a bit vulnerable and they will have like psychological issues of like, what am I do now? I kind of like see myself as a dancer. I haven't wear so many hats in life. So it kind of like, how can I expose myself to a different role? So how do you take these people through those paths of embodiment of a different roles?
Well, I must emphasize that, of course, coaching is not it's not therapy. It's very important to understand that if you seek therapy, if you have an issue of the psychological nature, then coaching is perhaps not what you should be seeking out. You should be seeking out therapy. Coaching is a much more, well, to explain the difference, in therapy, you take a person from being dysfunctional to becoming functional. Coaching is, on the other hand, aimed at taking a functional person to becoming more functional or to the next level of excellence or whatever. So you're working from the present moment into the future. You're not looking backwards. It's a forward-looking activity, coaching. So when coaching really works is when someone comes to you and they have a view of what they want. And then you can work together towards that view. Sometimes people come to me because they don't know what they want. And then the objective of the coaching is to discover what it is they want. Because fundamentally what I'm trying to achieve is to help people discover what they want, what they need to do, to get what they want. But most importantly, what is stopping them from doing what they need to do to get what they want. So those are the things that we work on together. I tend to prefer to work with more mature people, because rather than young dancers coming out of school, I was recently approached by a mother who wanted me to coach her child, but I had to say no to that because I can't work with children. I mean, I have to work with adult people, because that's where I can make a contribution.
So what is the age range that you basically, from which age you think is easier for you to work with people? What is the kind of like, in terms of if people seen this interview and they wanted to contact you, what is the age range, and would you be able to expand on that age range that you're working with?
Well, I would work with anyone who is basically an adult, which I suppose is from age 18 and upwards. Although the people that I do work with tend to be sort of mid to late 20s, mid 30s, and in some cases in their 40s and 50s. So.
Okay, no, because there is a lot of individuals in their teens, like 18, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, that they're coming out of a formal education. And sometimes they're not very lucky to get a company straight away. And they need some guidance. They have a vision that they wanted to dance, and they might be helpful for them to have some kind of approach. And I was wondering, is you offering something to this as a group or as an individual? So you offer something to those individuals.
Of course I can, and of course I would, and I would enjoy speaking to young dancers. But what the important thing to remember is that when I do that, I'm not a coach. I'm simply I can be a mentor or an advisor or an experienced person giving advice, but that's a slightly different function. And I enjoy doing that. And I was recently teaching at the school, and I, of course, talk to the students about their future, about challenges and what they can expect, perhaps. But I think it's just important to remember that as when I work in my coaching capacity, then I work with mature people, but it's just a different function. But so, if a young dancer can ask for me my advice, then I will share my knowledge, my opinions, and if I can make a contribution, then I will do so. It's just a different way because, yeah.
Okay,
it's like being a mentor rather than a coach.
Okay, that's a good to know. Changing slightly the subject, we know that lately the political agenda is being cutting off a lot of funds for artists, especially for dancers. How do you feel that this is taking us? How do you feel about that cutting of the financial funds that is so needed these days for the dance world? What is your view about that?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good question, because with political priorities are such in the world now, where we are seeing climate change and crisis in healthcare and crisis in education and all of that sort of other priorities that most people would see as much being more important than the arts, I suppose. And fair enough, there's a strong argument for why those issues should take priority over the fine arts. But I think that the result of that, I mean, the implications of that for artists and the arts world is that, particularly perhaps if you're a dancer, that if you come into the profession today as a young dancer, having come out of school, you can probably expect maybe a shorter career than was traditionally available to people, probably a much more varied career across perhaps a freelance career, working with projects and so on. So I think one of the implications is that a dancer today, graduating out of a school, also needs to be a little bit of an entrepreneur. They need to have business skills. They need to be able to manage themselves, need to be able to sustain their own training, perhaps, need to be able to fill in a tax return if necessary. All of those skills that previously, as being employed in a regular ballet company, you didn't need to worry about. But I think today dancers tend to move more regularly between different dance companies, maybe from regular employment to freelance employment to project employment. So I think being more agile and professionally more independent is important. essentially all of these skills have very little to do with actual dancing, but it has to do with being able to sustain a dancing career. And that's what's important to understand. That
So
you can't just train. A lot of dance schools in the world, I must say, prepare dancers to dance well, but they don't prepare them for the profession.
That's a huge subject. It could be explored even further, because it will be nice to see funds coming into those schools or those companies in order to help dancers further their education, like all the self-education, like doing short courses on how to fill the tax paper, or doing a short course during the time they're training on how to be an entrepreneur and sell themselves, market themselves, many ways. So these days, many people have to learn on the go. And those lucky enough to have an upward personality and be more extroverted, they're like lucky. And those ones who are perhaps brilliant at what they do, but they're very introverted and they're very shy in camera, or very shy in a public agenda, they will find it more difficult. So using funds supposed to be more available for the arts.
Yeah, I think if you're studying at school, and if you're the age sort of 16, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I think keep studying, probably your mom and dad has already told you that, keep up your education, because it's important, because it will come a day when you're going to need that degree or those letters after your name or something like that. I mean, a couple of people I've been coaching recently, one young woman, she's in her middle to late 20s, I think. She's running a business on the side of being a successful soloist dancer with one of the major European ballet companies, but she's also running a business on the side and doing business development. Another dancer I work with, who's also mid-20s, she's studying for an MBA, business management, because she's interested in investment. And another one I'm working with is also doing property investment. So, people that have that sort of vision, and they're still managing to sustain a dancing career at the same time. And I think that's an important lesson to learn. Obviously, there will be a time if you're with a dance company where the pressure of performance and rehearsals are too great in order to do something else. But even so, if you have the discipline and the resilience to keep something else up, it's really, really important.
That's fantastic. There's an amazing advice that you've been giving away. So now, how we will find you is, if somebody else is out there watching us, how they will find you. So tell us, where are you available on the social media? How do they come and reach you directly?
Well, I can be located on social media, Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And I have a website with my name. I tend to use LinkedIn quite a lot to connect with people. Other social media, I maintain as you do today. If you're running a business, you have to maintain a presence on social media just to let people know that you exist, basically. So yes, I can be found. If you Google my name, you will find me somewhere.
So I guess sure we place all your links below this video. So anybody who is looking for you, they will click on those links and they go straight onto some of your social media platform. So that would be really great for you.
And the other thing I can add to, if someone is interested in talking to me or working with me, what I always do is I offer a free consultation, or I call it a strategy session, where I have a confidential, informal conversation with someone, and we take maybe a half an hour, an hour and a half, and have a discussion about this person's issues or challenges. And at the end of that conversation, then we talk about working together, if at all but I always do that as a kind of free service, as it were. So if someone wants to just have a conversation and that might be enough, then I'm available and it doesn't cost you anything.
Oh, fantastic. That's really generous of you. Thank you so much, Max, for sharing all your knowledge, all your wisdom, all this amazing information for young dancers, for those who are in the transition period and wanted to do more. Thank you for offering all those coaching sessions. I'm sure the future is looking brighter and brighter. It can only get better by the days, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for giving me this time and sharing the screen with me, for the privilege and for humanity, actually, because I believe everything you give away is a contribution to humanity. So it's
that's very kind of you to say.
I'm very grateful for. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you wanted to add before you say goodbye?
Well, just on a sort of more personal note, a personal observation of how dance is developing today, which is, of course, I'm of a slightly older generation. So of course, my opinions are colored by my experiences and my background and the values that I grew up with, I suppose. Of course, we all are. And I look around, I look at YouTube today, for instance, and you see all these amazing dancers doing amazing things. And you go, where do they all come from? And how come that suddenly people can do 10, 12, 15 pirouettes and jump and do things that 10, 15, 20 years ago, no one did? Because fundamentally, the human body and the human brain hasn't changed for the past, I don't know, 50,000 years or something like that. And suddenly people are doing things that could not be done before. And that's very impressive. But I wonder and I question, how important is it really for the art form, this development? That's what I'm interested in knowing, because does it make it for better dancers, better artists? I don't know. I think it's an interesting question that I would be, yes, I think it's worth
it's really
exploring.
interesting question is food for thoughts for dancers out there. And we will investigate it even further. And perhaps we have another talk and we discuss that one in the near future. Thank you so much once more. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Chilian.
So, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again at some point. And to all the dancers, here is Max, ready to help there to develop your career even further to your transition, wherever you think your vision is. So thank you. Goodbye from Inspiral Ballet and from Max.
Bye-bye. Thank you.